Hello, my dear students. I hope you all have been doing well. Today we are going to discuss about lecture number 17, and it is about the regulation of metabolic processes. So in this lecture, we would be understand that whatever metabolic reaction that we have studied till now in our course, uh, how these metabolic reactions are regulated in our body. Whatever metabolic processes in our body takes place, they regulate via different minerals, via different chemicals, via different hormones, and via different vitamins. So we would be studying about how this vitamin, how this second messenger, how this hormones would be involved for the regulation of these metabolic processes. So you have to just keep in your mind that all the metabolic processes that are take place in our body regulate from via vitamins, secondary messenger, and hormones. So what are those hormones that are involved in the regulation of metabolic process in our body? These may be fat soluble vitamin like vitamin A, D, E, K, and they may be a water soluble vitamin. So we would be studying about both water soluble vitamin and the fat soluble vitamin. So vitamin A, we also would be studying about their physiological role and their role in the regulation of metabolic processes. So vitamin A is having three forms. One is retinol form, other is retinoic acid form, and one is retinol form. So retinol form participate in the vision, and then this is the physiological role. And then retinoic acid is involved in our growth and development of the cell, and the retinol is involved in uh, to for the to keep healthy our immune system. So this was the physiological role of vitamin A, and the vitamin A is also involved in the generation of new cells, of new skin cells, uh, in generation of new cell in the skin and the mucous membrane, and then it is also involved in the differentiation process and cellular metabolism. However, due to the deficiency of vitamin A, there are different diseases. For example, one of the most important diseases of vitamin A deficiency is warfarin, and the vitamin D is having two form, that is vitamin D2 form and D3 form. D3 is polycalciferol, and D2 is arbocalciferol. So these enzymes is also involved different physiological and metabolic processes of our body. Especially vitamin D is involved in the for the good performance of our immune system. And then deficiency of vitamin D is leading to the different growth disorder. And vitamin E is also having different beneficial role in our body, especially vitamin E acts as an antioxidant. And of course, the deficiency of vitamin E leads to the different raise the oxidative stress in our body and lead to different diseases. And the vitamin D is vitamin E is especially involved in the in the um, in the all those diseases that are occur due to the raising of oxidative stress in our body. So these were the role of different enzymes. Actually, we have to understand about that how these vitamins take part in the regulation of metabolism. So this was just means outline or physiological role that I guess you have previously been understand. So that is why I'm going through quickly, because our main topic to understand is the physiological role of these vitamin, mineral, and fatty and uh, other messenger molecules. So vitamin needs, now we will be seeing that how these complex vitamins, these are different thiamine, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, niacin, and phenocobalamin, how they involve in our different metabolic processes. So we also would be so this is and diagram in that we can understand how this B complex vitamin can be helped in the different metabolic processes in our body. So we can see here that uh, um, uh, different coenzymes and vitamins both involved in the regulation of um, metabolic processes that are take place in our body. So this PCO cycle is one of the metabolic processes that takes place in our body. Actually, this PCO cycle is the cycle of the oxidation of what fatty acid oxidation. So the NAD and FAD, these are the coenzymes. What are the coenzymes? Coenzymes are the organic non-protein compounds. For they help for this in the catalysis. So FAD, FMN, NADP, and NAD, these are the coenzymes. So what are FAD? FAD are flavin adenine dinucleotide, FMN flavin mononucleotide. So these in this picture you can see here these different coenzymes involved in the fat metabolism. In this, they involved in the conversion of acetyl-CoA into acetyl-CoA that is involved uh, in the when the acetyl-CoA synthesized. Then acetyl-CoA synthesized and enter in the PCA cycle, and in the PCA cycle different coenzymes, for example FAD and NAD, these are also generated and involve the regulation of this PCA cycle. However, we can see here vitamin B12, vitamin B6, all these are also involved in the metabolic reaction, and especially FAD and NAD is also involved in the metabolism of carbohydrates. And the vitamin B complex vitamin, that is vitamin B6, is involved for the regulation of protein metabolism. So these coenzymes and B complex vitamin involved for the metabolism of lipid, protein, and carbohydrate, all three major macromolecules. Now we will be studying about what is the role of the second messenger in the regulation of metabolic processes in our body. So in the second messenger, we will be studying about cyclic AMP, calcium ion, and phosphoinositol. These all three are the second messenger. What are the second messenger? Second messenger are the molecules that means first messenger are the molecule. First we have to understand the second messenger. We have to first understand about what are the first messenger. First messenger are the molecules that bind with the receptor and initiate a signal transduction pathway inside the cell, and that this signal reaches to the cell and that activate the gene that are involved in the particular task. However, the second messenger are those that catch up the signal from first messenger, and the second messenger are present inside our the cell. These are not the external; these are the internal signals. So we will be studying that how these second messenger, where they form, where they present in the cell, and what do they do. So we will be talking about these second messenger, cyclic AMP, calcium ion, and phosphoinositol. So in this diagram, we are having a pathway, a metabolic pathway. A pathway, here we are having a signal transduction pathway, and in this pathway we will be understand that how inositol, phosphoinositol, and calcium ion are involved for the regulation of these pathways. So we will be seeing here, here is the receptor. Whenever our messenger bind with the receptor, so this messenger is the first um, messenger. We can say this it as a first messenger because it is an external, and first it is one of the first molecule that is initiated the signal. So this first messenger bind with the receptor, and what happens, it activates the receptor, and then the receptor activates the G protein. So this G protein is cultured from alpha beta gamma subunit, and after the activation, this alpha subunit differs from this gamma subunit, alpha subunit differs from beta and gamma subunit, and this alpha subunit will, after detaching, will be attached with a protein, another lipid molecule that is embedded in the plasma membrane, that is phospholipase C. And this alpha subunit then what do attach with the phospholipase C, and then this phospholipase C then converts PIT2, this phosphatidylinositol 2, into IT3, means inositol triphosphate. This phospholipase C, after the activation, converts phospho PIT2 into PIT3, that is inositol diphosphate to inositol triphosphate. This then inositol triphosphate is a second messenger. Why it is a second messenger? Because it is going to to bind with another receptor, and then what will happen? It initiates a signal, and due to this signal, this calcium released from the nucleus and then come inside the cytosol and will activate another protein, that is protein kinase C, and then the protein kinase will activate other proteins. So, and this calcium is also involved for the construction of the muscle cells. So this is how the calcium acts as a second messenger, or calcium regulates the different pathways in our body. So and IP3, that is the phospholipid or phosphoinositol, how it regulates the processes in our body. So this is about the second messenger, that is IP3 and calcium. Now we are talking about the how cyclic AMP regulates these pathways in our body. So here we can see a diagram in that we can see that liver and release the hormone that these bind with this receptor, and then after binding to the receptor, they activate a protein, that is the adenylyl cyclase, after the activation of G protein. So the receptor hormone binding this receptor, it activates G protein. G protein activates adenylyl cyclase, that is an enzyme found to be embedded in the membrane of the cell. So this adenylyl cyclase converts ATP into cyclic AMP. So this is that cyclic AMP for what we are talking about. This cyclic AMP activates protein kinase A. Protein kinase activates phosphorylase kinase. Phosphorylase kinase activates glycogen phosphorylase. Glycogen phosphorylase, what do they do? It converts glycogen into glucose phosphate, and then glucose phosphate converts into glucose. So this is how the cyclic AMP regulates this metabolic process in our body. So this is how the second messenger regulates different metabolic process in our body. Now we are talking about different enzymes. How different enzymes regulate the metabolic pathway in our body. So we are talking about, first of all, we understand what are hormones. Hormones are the molecules. They may be protein, they may be amino acids, they may be lipids that release from our body cell and bind with the receptor and initiate a process in our cell. So here we can see this hormone. We are talking about the estrogen. It crosses the plasma membrane, and its receptor are present in the nucleus. So it binds with its receptor, and this enzyme receptor complex will bind with the corresponding gene, and then it converts this gene. It allows this gene to translate into protein, and then its protein is involved in different physiological process in our body, for example, cell proliferation, differentiation, and so on. And here another example, another mechanism of the hormone. You can see that hormone binds receptors on the cell surface. Hormone can bind with its receptor on the cell surface or inside the cell surface. But it is depends on the type of the hormone, for what type of hormone we are having. The steroid hormone, for example, estrogen, having its receptor inside the cell. However, other hormone, for example, we are having other hormone having the receptor on the cell surface. So when hormone binds with this receptor, that uh, it converts cyclic AMP from ATP, and then this cyclic AMP will uh, initiate biological responses. And how it initiate the biological responses? This is the same as here. Cyclic AMP then convert into protein kinase A, and then the same reaction would be taking place here. So this was the whole about the how the mechanism, what the mechanism of action of hormones. So what are the main type of hormones that are present in our body? Actually, in our liver, pancreas, the main type of hormones are present, that is glucagon, insulin, and somatostatin. Glucagon and somatostatin released from alpha cell of the pancreas. However, insulin released from the beta cell of pancreas. So what this insulin is doing in our body, and how this insulin hormone is involved for the regulation of the metabolic process in our body. This insulin, what do it do? The insulin, when we are having high blood glucose level, so this insulin, what do this do? This insulin allow the glucose to be enter inside the cell. So how it allow to enter in the cell, we will be seeing here in our body. So we will be see in this diagram, but first we understand how this insulin involved in the regulation of metabolic process in our body. So we will be having high glucose level in our blood. So what happens? The pancreas release the insulin. Insulin bind with its receptor, and then what will be having? It allow glucose to be enter in the cell, and this when the glucose will be entered, here we can see insulin will bind with the receptor, and then when insulin bind with this receptor, so the glucose transporter allow glucose to be enter in the cell. Because why it happen? Why glucose transporter cannot allow the glucose enter in the cell without binding insulin with its receptor? Because when insulin not bind with its receptor, unbounded insulin receptor with insulin. When insulin will not bind with the receptor, so glucose transporter present inside the cell. Glucose transporter only shuttle towards the membrane on that side when insulin would bind with receptor. And insulin, when insulin binds with its receptor, insulin only binds with the receptor when there will be high glucose level in the blood. So whenever high glucose in the blood, insulin would bind in the insulin receptor, and when insulin binds with the insulin receptor, glucose transporter that are present inside the cell would be travel towards the membrane, and then they were the then when the glucose transporter comes at the membrane, it allows to transport glucose from outside the cell to the inside of the cell. So when the glucose reaches from the inside of the cell, what happens? The glycolysis will be stopped, and glucose would convert into pyruvate, and then pyruvate would convert into the fatty acid. So all these mechanisms would be take place inside the cell that we are seeing here. So all these mechanisms only help, only take place when glucose will be reaches inside the cell due to the insulin. So that is the how the insulin regulates the metabolic processes in our body, because insulin helps glucose transporter to come on the cell surface. And then what happens? When there will be high glucose inside the cell, so another hormone would be released from the pancreas, that is the glucagon. What does glucagon do? This glucagon converts this glucagon converts glycogen into glucose or glucose 6-phosphate by glycogenolysis. So glucagon initiates the breakdown of glycogen, and then what happens? The glycogen stimulates cell to perform gluconeogenesis. That is the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate precursor. So when and glucagon is released in our body when glucose will be too low. Okay, when glucose inside the cell would be too low, so glycogen release from the pancreas, and this glycogen assists for the glycogenolysis, breakdown of glycogen, and gluconeogenesis, the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors. So that is how the insulin and glucagon would regulate the metabolic processes in our body. And what happens then is you have to just keep remember that insulin whenever release insulin release when we are having high glucose level in blood, not in the cell. So cell would be deprived of means energy. So when cell would be deprived from the energy, so the pancreas release the insulin, and insulin would bind with the insulin receptor and allow the glucose to be enter in the cell, and then glycolysis would be take place, and then what will happen? Glycolysis takes place and the glucose would be synthesized, and this glucose would convert into pyruvate, and the pyruvate would enter into convert into acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA forms the triacyl glycerol, and then the fatty acid would transport to the adipose tissue and and deposit there. And what would be happen then? The triacylglycerol also reaches to the lymphatic system, and then again re-enter to the liver, or the triacylglycerol would be reaches convert into the fatty acid and deposit into fat, deposit into muscles. So this is how the metabolic reaction would be regulated in our body by different enzymes, different second messenger, and different hormones. So what are the second messengers that regulate the metabolic reaction? These are the cyclic AMP, these are the phosphoinositol, these are the calcium molecules. And what are hormones that regulate the metabolic processes in our body? These are the insulin and glucagon that regulate especially um, various metabolic processes. For example, uh, glucose breakdown, gluconeogenesis, glycolysis, and what are the vitamin and coenzyme that regulate metabolic processes. These are the uh, water soluble and fat soluble vitamin, especially vitamin B12, that is uh, water soluble vitamin, affect water soluble vitamin, and the coenzyme include the FAD and NAD. So I hope you understand all these lectures. So thank you very much for the understanding, and Allah Hafiz.